Yo, welcome back to the channel. I pulled the motor, here it is. But here's the thing, in less than a week, I'm gonna attempt to take this $1,000 X-Ray on a 2,000-mile road trip. But there's a hole right here. There's also a long list of other things that need done. But today we're gonna focus on getting the new motor in, getting it fired up. Let's check it out. Pulling the motor actually wasn't even that bad. Since I'm getting so good at taking off the head, intake and exhaust manifolds and all that, I ended up doing that so I would have easy access to the top two bell housing bolts. And then there's two more bell housing bolts on the lower end. Take out the starter, flex plate, the torque converter bolts, plugs, wires, all that. Yank the motor, not too bad. Here's the new engine. It's out of a 97. It actually came with all the wiring harnesses and the PDC and vacuum lines and everything. So I tore all that off to get it to this point. Here's some of the parts. Wiring harness, exhaust manifold, older style intake manifold. That alternator looks brand new. We got a memory belt. Might be able to reuse some of that stuff. I'm gonna get this engine to look like this one, take off the head and everything. And since it's a 97 and this is a 2000, there is some stuff we have to change over. For example, ignition system with a distributor, whereas the new one just uses a cam position sensor and on the oil pump drive. So we have to switch this onto the new block. Probably end up using some of this brackets and probably use this water pump. This one looks a little crusty. Let's tear into it. First order of business is getting cylinder one top dead center on the compression stroke. We're gonna keep an eye on the intake valve, which is here. I put a little white line on it so you can actually see when it opens up, which is right there. And when that valve closes, that means we're coming up on compression. So we'll leave it about there. We'll pull the head and get it to actual top dead center. We'll circle back around to it, but that's for that cam position sensor swap I was talking about. Gonna get these accessory brackets off. Get all the plug wires off and the distributor. If you've been keeping up with this here 2000 Cherokee, you know I bought it for $1,000 knowing that it had coolant in the oil. That's why it was cheap. And I figured since it was a 2000, it'd be a cracked 331 head. So the first thing we did was put on a brand new clear water cylinder head and it cleared that issue up. No more coolant in the oil, that's good. But then after we were running it for a while, engine got up to temperature, we lost oil pressure all the way to 0. So in the last video, we did an oil pump and same thing, no oil pressure after the engine's warm. So at this point, we're kind of dealing with a worst case scenario deal. I guess the previous owner just neglected it too long and let coolant cycle through the oil too much and it wiped the cam bearings. At least that's what I think happened. So hopped on Marketplace, found this thing locally for $300, low miles, good oil pressure, good oil, everything like that, ready to go. Get that old distributor out of here. We'll do the valve cover next after we drain this oil out of here. Many 7/16 bolts. Rockers are coming off next. And even though I bought brand new lifters and push rods for this old motor, just so everything's the same, I think I'm gonna use these rockers, these push rods, and these lifters on the new head, just so, you know, these guys have been working together a long time. We don't wanna split them up. So we're gonna lay all these out front to back in the order that they came out over here on the cardboard box. This head is in great shape though. Look how clean it is up here. There's no sludge buildup, very clean. I'm actually really happy with it so far. Compared to what the 331 head that came off of this motor right here, it's just built up with all kinds of nastiness. Good deal so far. Next, we'll get these head bolts off. This might be a dumb waste of time, but I like to crack the head bolts loose by hand opposite of what the torque pattern is. So I'm gonna go through and crack all these off by hand and then we'll zip them out with the gun. Next, we'll yank this head off of here. Should we just go for it? Maybe not. Yeah, I'm gonna use the hoist. Yay, is that a factory head gasket? Those are fun to clean. Man, this engine's clean. I hope I can get it to come through, but it is just clean in there. No sludge. I'm gonna have to stick the vacuum down there. I got some of these crumbly bits in there, but man, is that clean. Looking good. We'll rip the water pump off real quick. That way this heater hose neck is out of the way. Gotta take this power steering bracket brace thing off. Should be good to take that off as one. Now, the coolant is a different story. It's a little bit nasty, but be all right. Busting out the wet vac to try and get rid of some of that nonsense. I vacuumed out the coolant passage as best as I could. Then I vacuumed out the lifter valley. Now I'm shoving rags down here. That way when we clean the surface, we're spraying, we're scraping, getting this clean, nothing falls into the lifter valley there and gunks it up or whatever. Now we're ready to clean the head surface. We got all of our main food groups here. Brake clean, purple power, degreaser, rags, scraping tool, and razor blade. Also going to clean the mating surface for the water pump as well. Well, that was in time lapse by accident. I wasn't recording. I pulled all the old rags off, and I'm going to finish cleaning this later. I thought I had some Scotch-Brite pads, but I don't. I replaced all the paper towels, and this time I pushed them in a little bit farther to hold them against the lifters. I'm going to turn the engine over, and I don't want them falling out. I also don't want to take them out. They're just chilling in their bores. I ain't going to bother them. And I'm taking off this oil filter, and we'll see. Shit. Oh, that could have been bad. See if we can get some more out of it here. All right, let's turn it all the way over and see what happens. You know what? I think I'm just gonna keep it like that because that's good enough to take off the pan. So I'm taking off the pan. For one, the oil pan on the motor I pulled is a lot nicer. And for two, there's a brand new oil pump in that one that I wanna put in here. What a clean motor. Holy crap. Here's the old engine. I got it flipped around into the same spot. And here's all of our hard work from the last video. Now this gasket might have been reusable, but I did order another one anyway. And here's our brand new pump and pickup tube. So I'm gonna get this cleaned up along with the mating surface for the pan gasket. All right, got everything clean, looks good. I actually bought a new rear main seal. I was gonna do it, but this one almost looks brand new. You can still see how orange it is. I feel like this was done before. The pan gasket was obviously done, so I wonder if that's why it was off. So I'm not going to mess with it because it's a pain in the butt. You got to take off this whole brace and get your bearing cap off and all that. So now I'll take the nice new oil pump off the old engine, throw it on there. Got the new one nice and cleaned off, threw the gasket on there. Now got those torqued to 18 foot-pounds, and I got RTV, just a little bead where the timing cover meets the block here, and then where the rear bearing cap meets the block. Also got the little snapper-doos in there. I don't know why, because it should be pretty simple with the engine inverted. Now we can put on our new rubber gasket. Right like that. Got it seated in the bearing cap nicely back here. Now we can throw that oil pan on top and run some bolts. All the hardware is in, torqued down to 10 foot-pounds. I also got the brackets and all that where they should be. I'm gonna turn this engine back around. So all the stuff is done now on the bottom end, and that's pretty much all I have time for today. I'm gonna clean up around here and we'll hit it again tomorrow. Back for some day 2 action. I got some work done. I took a lot of the brackets and stuff of the motor I pulled out. They looked a lot better, like the alternator bracket and the AC bracket. I'm gonna wait to put them on along with the power steering bracket. That way there's just more room when we're dropping it in there. That stuff's easy to put on later. I had this new water pump in stock, so I threw it on. Got a new water pump gasket on there as well. And then I went out, I picked up some Scotch-Brite pads, so I finished cleaning the head surface off. Got everything cleaned up and vacuumed out, got all the rags pulled out, so this is pretty much good to go. One thing that's pretty crucial though, is you wanna come through with some compressed air and blow out all these head bolt holes. Make sure there's no water in there, nothing, get them cleaned out. So that's all good to go. Got the oil pressure sensor switched over too with the plug on it. And I even switched the motor mount brackets. The one that came out of the Jeep had this heat shield on the driver's side, probably for the California emissions. So I threw that on there just so everything would be the same. So this block pretty much now looks like what that one did when it came out. So it's all but ready to go in. The last thing to do is that cam position sensor right here that I was talking about that goes in place of the distributor that was on this 97 block. So I figured I'd show you guys how to put that on because there's a little bit more to it than just swapping over parts. So remember at the beginning of the video when we got this engine to top dead center on the compression stroke, that's where this comes into play. So we're gonna get it to top dead center. I got a dial indicator set up here. The harmonic balancer is marked with a top dead center notch. So in case that doesn't happen, you can use a dial indicator to precisely find top dead center. So we're just gonna see where the dial indicator maxes out at. So it's like 2.25. We're gonna turn it all the way back over, check it again. This is the exhaust stroke now. See if it goes back right there, 2.25. And then we'll come back around. There's our intake. And we're back on compression. So we'll just get it right up to that point again. So now that we're at true top dead center, you can see that that timing mark, I marked it in white, lines up with the 0. We'll move over to this engine. I already got it at top dead center, and I'll show you what to do with that. Now on this here, there's 2 little 7/32 bolts that hold this top part on. You don't have to do this. I just want to demonstrate. You want to grab 2 toothpicks, all right? Might be able to see it in there. On this inner part, there's a hole right there. And if you look on the outside part, there's a hole right there. And at top dead center, those holes should line up. So you stick your toothpick in there like that. And then there's a 1/2-inch bolt that holds down this retainer. Pull that bolt out, pull off the retainer, and this guy should just pull right out, like such. And then the second toothpick, that's for you. Going back in is a little bit different, not too bad. You have to keep an eye on the oil pump drive that this flathead part slips into. And I don't know if you noticed when we pulled it out, but it kind of turned as we came out. We want the sensor facing towards the back, like that. There we go. But if it's not going in, you can just stick a flathead screwdriver in there to turn the oil pump drive, and that'll get you squared away. We can put on the retainer, and now that the retainer has it locked down, we can pull out our toothpick, and then all we got to do is throw back on the top plate. Since it's a 4-stroke engine and it goes to top dead center twice, there's a chance you could be 180 degrees out of timing, and you'll know pretty quick when that happens, if it happens. For all I know, this one could be, because I was turning it over as I was cleaning it. I thought I was keeping track, but I guess we'll see. If that does happen, pull off the cover, turn the engine over until the holes line up again in here. Make sure it's at top dead center. All you're going to do is take this back out, go 1 full revolution on here till it's top dead center again, and then put it right back in, bolt it down, should be good to go. That should be about all the prep work we need to do before we take it off the engine stand. So we're gonna get it up here on the yoink machine, get it off the engine stand, then we gotta put on the dust shield and the flex plate, then we're ready to put it in. Stand is off, and this is pretty easy to figure out. You can see why. Got the flex plate on here along with that ring or whatever the heck it is, plus the bolts. And the torque spec on these is 105 foot-pounds, which is pretty hefty. And considering there's no compression on top, this thing's gonna spin over really easy when I go to torque these. I might need to call Courtney, or I could try and stick something in here, or maybe I can give this thing a big old hug, hold a wrench here while I torque here. I think that's what I'm gonna try. Hey. Now, one more thing before we attempt to stab this thing in here. We need to make sure that our flex plate is gonna line up with our torque converter with the 4 bolts. So, my recommendation to you be to get this thing straight up and down, and you can kind of use that bottom bolt and this top notch as a reference, and then come over here using this top bolt as a reference to get one of these lined up. It's the next day. Again, we're gonna take a crack at throwing this engine in. A couple things to look out for. These dowel pins that stick out of the block need to line up with the transmission, and then obviously the motor mounts need to line up on the sides. So let's give it a shot. All right, I got both the main bell housing bolts started, so that's where we'll leave that. Now we'll try and focus on getting our motor mounts lined up, get a bolt through there. Then we can get the hoist out of here. Get the nut on, try this other side. There we go. Got the bottom 2 bell housing bolts in and tight, torqued down. Now for the top 2, I would highly recommend that you replace your E12 Torx bolts with regular hex bolts. Makes it a lot easier, and I'll be able to get it from the top side with a ratcheting wrench to get it tight. So I'll do that next. Then we'll head underneath, see how well our flex plate lined up with the torque converter, get those tightened down and torqued. All right, we're under here. I don't know how well you can see, but I think everything actually stayed aligned. So I'm gonna try and run a bolt in, see what happens. Check that out. It actually started. Sweet. So I'm gonna get this one snug down. I'm gonna attempt to torque them to 40 foot-pounds. Check this out. Got the breaker bar and there's a hole right here in the unibody. Sweet. Now I'm actually gonna spin it a full 180 degrees so I get the opposite side bolt. I got all them there torqued, and then I got the dust shield on, the lower dust shield. Also threw in the starter and put on all these brackets for the trans cooler lines, just so I'm done under there for now. Before we throw on the cylinder head, try and get this wire harness routed and things where they're supposed to be. I took a bunch of pictures and get stuff plugged in. All that wiring harness is routed, very nice. looking good. I also wiped down and, well, I vacuumed and then I wiped down with brake clean the head one more time. So that's nice and clean. We're ready to hook up to our nice clear water cylinder head. Once I have it dangling off the chain there, I'm gonna clean the bottom. It's probably fine, but just to make sure, spray with some brake clean, wipe it down. Pretty clean, looks good. Head gasket's on there, ready to go. And never forget, put the back right corner head bolt in before you put it in the Jeep. Got them all in there hand tight, and we're ready to torque them down. I also had to take off the thermostat because I forgot to put on this water pump heater hose thing. Anyway, so there's 3 different specs, and then we gotta do it in a sequence. So first is 22, and then we're just gonna go around in a spiral. Also remember that this front passenger bolt gets thread sealer because it goes into the cooling passage. Next, we'll step it up to 45 foot-pounds. Then we'll bring it up to 110 for our final torque spec. With the exception of the front one we put thread sealer on, we're gonna back her down to 100. Since the lifters, push rods, and rocker arms are all buddies with each other already, I'm not gonna use assembly lube. I'm just gonna use some zinc oil and then just make sure the push rod seats into the lifter cup. The rocker's coming in hot. Again, got them all snug down, hand tight. Now we'll torque them down to 19 foot-pounds. Everything that's left is pretty simple stuff. It just takes some time to do, but I'm ready to fire this thing up. So let's get after it. All right, everything's back together and we're ready to fire it up. We just have to add oil. I already got a new filter in there. 6 quarts of Rotella, 10W30. Well, that's all the coolant I had. Not much, it wasn't enough to fill it, but good enough. We're gonna fire it up. I don't know what's about to happen. Let's just do it. Shouldn't have to prime anything because there's no really new parts. Temperature, as you can see, and still got oil pressure. Good, very good oil pressure actually. This thing sounded really quiet even though it's kind of dumping open header right now. Once I put the exhaust on in the next video, we'll be able to appreciate it much more on how quiet it is, but don't got any leaks. Looks pretty good. Ran good, got up the temperature. So that's gonna wrap it up for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.